Hey guys, this is Michael. Welcome to Salty Whale Podcast. Today we have Mac Mckay. He's a big collector of flesh and blood, and he's got a Hurricane Collective store out in Australia. Mac and myself met last year when doing a trade. He had a heart, a Fendel cold foil, and I had a shard cold foil. And he really wanted one, so we did a trade plus cash. Mac is also big in the marketplace and graded pages. He does a lot of grading with Beckett, probably some other companies. Hey Mac, welcome to joining the podcast.
Yeah, good morning, Michael. Good to be on with you, mate, and have a chat.
Great. I'm glad you're here. So just curious though, is how did you get into Flesh and Blood in the first place, and when did you get into it?
It was midway through 2019, and we were doing a lot of breaks within the Facebook group that I have linked to the Hurricane Collective, and a lot of that was Dragon Ball and Pokemon related, and it was sort of getting like very saturated. Like everything was just Dragon Ball, and everyone was grading, and everyone was selling the same stuff, and Pokemon was going through its little scalper type scenario. Everyone was like buying and reselling at more expensive rates. So I was really looking for something new and good quality to sort of get behind. And I reached out to the supplier in Australia who pointed Flesh and Blood out to me, and we took a chance and got a few cases in, and it started pretty slow. It was a bit difficult to sell it. A lot of people were a bit wary of getting into something new at that point, with cash being probably limited at that point due to COVID and so on and so forth. But eventually it started to move, and the problem we had was that it wasn't really sort of people weren't jumping into the breaks, so to speak. And obviously we see Chris now with the boys on Flesh and Blood Unseals, smashing the breaks. People love them, but early on it was a little bit more difficult, just because people were a bit more wary. So but yeah, we did the research. We just loved the game, the lore behind the game, because personally I was a big Diablo fan, and loved that kind of those fantasy worlds and that kind of thing. So it all just sort of added up to me to be something I wanted to get behind and support.
Awesome. And then when did the player base start growing? Was it like, so you got it in Welcome to Wrath, right? So you had Arcane Rise and Crucible War. When did the player base really start showing up in your stores?
During Arcane Rising's release was when we started to really notice people come and take notice that the game was around. Even then, it was only 2, 3, 4 players for a few months. We didn't host many events on the Gem software to start with. It was more learning to play and trying to encourage local players who maybe hadn't played Flesh and Blood to come and give it a go. And I think it was probably around October last year where it really started to take off. People started to realize that big events like the callings and so on and so forth were, they weren't just like one-off things, that this was going to be around for a while. And yeah, the player base has just steadily grown from there. We average on most good nights double-figure players, and then every now and again we'll throw in just an on-demand casual where people can just chill, and we might only get 5 or 6 there, but it's designed to just more relax, test new decks out, things like that.
So has the player base continued to grow since last year then?
Oh yeah, 100%. We've had quite a few. I mean, as we all have had challenges with restrictions and lockdowns and things like that. But one thing I've noticed is that the demand for people to continue to work on their decks and learn new play styles has just continued to be really steady. I've noticed other TCGs and the I guess people wanting singles and sealed product from other TCGs, from myself personally, has definitely slowed, whereas Flesh and Blood certainly hasn't done that for me personally.
So we've seen, I believe, 5 sets already, Flesh and Blood, and the next set looks kind of fun. So just out of curiosity, what do you want to see out of Everfest?
I'm so excited about Everfest. I mean, Monarch and Tales of Aria came into the picture with like really powerful new mechanics and What I noticed with those sets was that they were, like, the word powerful is sort of, they weren't overpowered, but they were definitely really strong compared to, previous sets. And I think that sort of has to happen. I don't think as a TCG you wouldn't be releasing a new set that was literally dominated by everything that was, released in the past. Otherwise, why would people really want to grab it? If they're just going to get decimated by the old cards. But I think the balance was tricky for me. I don't play as much because I'm hosting, so I was always a bit. It was trickier for me playing with the Monarch set because I guess I don't practice that much, and the mechanics sort of didn't fit my game style. But when Tales of Aria came out, being very, I guess, more lighthearted, it had the beautiful Aria backgrounds in it and the trees and so on and so forth. A lot of players sort of came back and showed more interest in that after Monarch. And I think it's going to happen again with Everfest, just because it's literally just designed as that carnival atmosphere, lots of fun and mucking around and having a ball in the game shop. I just think it's going to be really fun. I think they're probably going to be adding in maybe some more currency. I'd love to see some more currency added, like silver perhaps, and I'd love to see the merchant get a bigger appearance somehow. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. They're also adding that carnival slot, so they're still adding stuff that we don't know about, and they already have one new
100%.
hero for the Guardian they revealed early. So it'll be interesting to see what other new heroes they add, Bard potentially, and some other stuff. But you mentioned that something about the lightheartedness of Tales of Aria that people latched onto. So you think that kind of drives them towards the Everfest as well, you're saying?
Yeah, I believe so. So we looked back at Monarch, and it was for me, when I saw Monarch released initially, I thought, wow, they've really taken the big risk here in the design of this set, especially in, I guess, the woke culture we live in, where people are offended by everything these days. It was fantastic that the community around Flesh and Blood, there was none of that seemed to be an issue for anyone, which was great. So my initial thoughts when I first saw Monarch was that there could have been, players who might not have been as willing to grab those new cards because of the design, but it really didn't seem to be an issue. However, when Tales of Aria came out, I did see more players who I hadn't seen for quite a while come back to the store. So I think, human nature is to gravitate towards those pretty shiny, happy, relaxed things, and Everfest is going to tick all those boxes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I remember seeing some people complain about Monarch being too evil at first, and that might have drawn away some players, but I love that kind of thing. It sounded like you did too, because you're a big Diablo fan. But
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Lightheartedness is not going to offend as many people, I guess you could say. So it's cool that LSS is willing to offend people. At the same time as too, they're like, hey, we can be fun too. Here's a happy environment. Oh wait, we're doing a carnival now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a testament to them to be confident enough that they knew in their own minds the product release of Monarch was exactly what they needed at the time as well, and then to continue to balance each set that comes out is really fantastic to see. They really haven't, in my opinion, they haven't missed yet. Yeah, really excited for it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, the cool part is a lot of this stuff has been mentioned in the lore book too. You might only have a few words here and there or a page, but Everfest has been mentioned, Bard, all these different things have been mentioned. So it's cool they're coming about it too. And even in the lore book, they built up quite a big world in there too. I mean, I would like a part 2 lore book. I'd like more lore as they come along. But, there's a big question mark for Q2 next year. And the rumors being it's going to be a PvE set. So just curious to you as a store owner, how do you see, or player versus environment, how do you as a store owner see PvE for the game? and how does it affect you as a store owner, or what can you do with it?
Well, I think it's going to be really. I think it'll be a refreshing change. I know that we've got so many players who are just like the level of play that we see at the moment these days is phenomenal, and a lot of our local customers and players are well up in the ranks on the Fab leaderboards. But at the same time as well, the option of having a different play style, sort of like pit fight and that kind of thing in PvE. There's nobody that I know that sort of says, "Oh no, I'm happy just staying doing what I'm doing." Thanks. I think it's going to really give me more options as a store to host different events and have them hosted with different formats. Like the PvE, we can set up the whole room differently. We can make it more fun. Not that the standard battles aren't fun as it is, but when you're trying to qualify for a pro quest, it can be stressful. Not that I would know what a top 8 table feels like, but I'm sure that the people who make it, I'm sure it's pretty tricky when you're on the top 8 table to sort of stay calm and not get stressed out. But I think with events like PvE, none of that would be a factor. It's just literally turn up and just have a blast.
Got it. So it allows you to cater to different crowds too. I mean, definitely it's very stressful being in top 8. I've done it a few times, but not saying I'm a great player or anything. But yeah, if you're going to the store and you're like, hey, it's a PvE night, you're like, all right, well, maybe I'll have an extra beer or two or whatever.
Exactly.
It's just
Yep.
it's more casual at that point.
Big time. And the casual Thursday, we normally do our casual Thursday night where we might do winner box or we throw a draft in or something like that. So the additional option of having that PvE or pit fight is really good. I've just got to practice giving people more notice.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see more pit fights or updated rules for pit fight to get that more going, because it's not played too often, but they already have a new card, I forget the name of it, that encourages multiplayer use too. It's the one that gives +1 card draw, and it gets -1 damage to you, but not to other players. So there's other cards coming out that, reference multiplayer formats too. So
yeah, nice. It's really good to see that they do that as well, but nothing ever feels forced, which I really do appreciate from James White and the team, because there's no other way to say it really. It's nothing's forced. Like those formats are in the background, but obviously they're working on the quality of the game and the new releases, but taking their time to continue growing those side projects like Pit Fight in the background.
we know of Everfest, and we know of a question mark potentially PvE. Who knows? That's just all hypothetical. We already know there's another set coming out Q2 next year. What are your thoughts on the release schedule for 2022? And what do you think is like the right amount, maybe too much or not enough? Like this year we had 2 releases. So like what would you expect from 2022?
I think the way it's rolling at the moment is pretty on point. I think a supplementary set per year with 2 main sets, I think is just about the right amount. You watch other TCGs, there's a set every 3 weeks, and it's just too much. People just lose all, from my experience and what I've seen from customers, when it's too much, they lose the passion to want to continue to buy and open things, because it's like, well, hang on, I haven't even finished 5 of the sets that I bought in 2020, and now there's 11 more sets in 2021. It's just, people can get to the point where they say, well, that's just too much, I won't buy anything else new. And I think LSS have got the balance right with 2 main sets per year. It doesn't feel like it's right around the corner, but at the same time, you're not waiting 6-8 months before the next set comes out.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being overwhelming. Plus, you get to learn all the new cards, just the meta and all the other aspects. Now, when you said two sets and a supplemental, would additional PvE be too much, or do you think that's all part of the release schedule?
I reckon they might be on to the fact that the supplementary set for this year is released early, and then I think you could probably squeeze PvE set in between the two major sets of 2022, if that's their plan. I don't think that would be too much, but I guess, yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's all it is right now is a waiting game, and it's really hard to wait because it's always exciting when they got a new set coming out.
Yeah.
So what are some positive aspects that you see coming to Flesh and Blood in 2022? Either being for collecting older cards or for newer sets. What some positive aspects need coming out next year?
I definitely think a calming of the sealed market has been the biggest positive I've seen. I had concerns when I saw what was going on with Monarch, and watching online stores sell Monarch at whatever they were selling it for. I won't go into the details, but I know we sold at I think you guys call it MAP. It's
MSRP, which is the recommended market price, and then MAP is minimum advertised price.
Well, we did the MSRP over here in the Hurricane Collective, and that was great. We didn't feel we needed to go any higher or lower. There was no issue in selling the stock, but the fact that a lot of the boxes were being advertised on eBays and other stores for 400, 500, 600, that concerned me at the time. But to see that it didn't carry on with Tales of Aria, that was refreshing. Whether first edition stays or goes, who knows what their plans are. I know Pokemon, did the same thing. They did 4, 5, 6. How many sets did they do of first edition? They went all the way up to the gym challenge stuff, didn't they? So it was about 7 sets, I think they did. And then they reverted back to just one version. And Magic did the same thing. Now they have collector's boosters. So I don't know what Fab's plans would be, but I know that I'm pretty excited to see, the new lore that could be part of the main sets. I'd love to see something around the metrics area with a big focus on like mech lore and things like that with Dash and Data Doll. That'd be my favorite.
Any negative things 2022 or any concerns you have?
I guess the uncertainty around the serialized cards and whether or not that might be something that they go ahead with. It's not really a negative. It's more just uncertainty as to what might be the direction first edition goes in or doesn't go in. But no, I'm pretty confident the way things have been going this year and the way things are moving forward, it's looking pretty good. I just hope that we're not impacted as much with travel restrictions so that we can get around and help judge and host events elsewhere.
Yeah, I can't wait till those things are completely removed. What are your thoughts on limited going forward? I mean, you mentioned that Pokemon was doing it for 7 sets and got rid of it. Right now we have unlimited. Do you feel it's still needed? Do you feel it's too much, or do you feel like it's great for the players? Like, what are your thoughts on that from a store perspective?
I love the aspect of first edition for collectability. I think it was probably one of the main factors that got me behind Flesh and Blood was safeguarding the collectability of the game so that player investments, and high-end investments into collections were going to be sort of safeguarded as best they could. Now, Unlimited came out and the idea was to safeguard players so that, the cards would be a little bit cheaper. And the main thing was that players would not have to worry about cards becoming just completely obsolete. And I think that can still obviously be done, whether it's a first edition or whether it's unlimited.
What are your thoughts on how it would be done? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I don't think first edition is needed from a player perspective. Now, that's not to say that I don't want to see first edition. I don't know how they would do it to sort of add that collectability to it, and that could come back to the serialized cards. I'm not sure. if that's anything they're thinking of. But I know I've got players who they really don't mind if it's an unlimited or a first edition card that they buy from me. If they need it for their deck, the prices are pretty, unless you're talking about Crucible first edition and earlier, the prices are pretty friendly. I purchased a Crown of Seeds gold foil for about 140 USD today, which, that's a beautiful price. Like, I couldn't say no to that. And as a store owner, it's always nice to have a few of the very good popular cards in stock. But if I was to try and sell an unlimited version, it probably wouldn't be it wouldn't be far off that price anyway, to be honest.
Got it. So the unlimited first edition prices are kind of getting closer now with Tales.
And I guess that's where I sort of think that, look, the collectible side of it, the foundations have been laid and are pretty strong there. If they were to go to a sole release of a main set where there was no first edition or whatever, and they could manage to safeguard collectors in the long term from, for those sets, I think that would be fine for players and collectors alike.
So I see that you've graded quite a few cards. How long have you been grading cards, and how do you decide like what to send?
The grading was interesting. It was what I was doing prior to being involved with Flesh and Blood, and prior to breaking Pokemon and certain things on the page. I wanted to transition into a full middleman business in Australia, and sort of almost got to that point until the company started to be quite difficult and unable to continue to provide the support that the customers needed. And they all fell behind. PSA fell behind. Beckett, their quality was very inconsistent. So the grading, where I revoked their support to the community for grading, that's another big reason why I moved towards Flesh and Blood as well. But we generally send away for customers anything that they want to send away. But for myself personally, it's not just everything cold foil. It's cards that I really have an attachment to. Like, I was a really big fan of Doomsday from Monarch. I thought that was just a fantastic card. And I went ahead and bought a couple of those and sent those away. I was a really big fan of anything Azalea related, so don't ask me why, but I just like her as a character. And yeah, so I have quite a few Skullbone cross wraps of hers graded as well. But I've lost a bit of faith in Beckett with their consistency at the moment. So at present, I've got a lot of subs that have been there for quite some time, but I don't have any plans to send anything to them at the moment until they get their act together.
Got it. Hopefully they'll get their act together eventually. Right now things are pretty much closed down unless you're sending it super fast, high-end grading. So
Correct.
Hopefully once, because I got quite a few cards there myself. I'm kind of in the waiting game right now, so hopefully they don't screw that up. But at the same time is I'm not sending anything to grading until they you're just saying get their act together or get their store back open again with the economy and all other grading services.
With the cards you've had returned, have you found inconsistencies with them? I think you mentioned when we were chatting one day that you've got quite a few put aside that are regrade potential.
Yeah, the regrade potentials are almost quads or something like that. So they're like 9s. If they had one more grade higher, it'd be 9.5. So those are the ones I set aside. I didn't see anything huge, but there's like 1 or 2 cards where they gave a low surface, which should be much higher. So those are my questionable ones. It's kind of hard to tell though, because they never tell you why they give you a grade either. So maybe there's something I missed myself, but it's hard to say inconsistencies. I know I had one card that had a scratch on it, got like a 10 surface. So sometimes they miss things like that too. So if I were to ever sell that card, I have to go out of my way to tell someone like, hey, I got a really good grade, but there's a minor scratch back here. So stuff like that does happen. But it's never impossible to get the whys behind it, which is kind of hard.
Yeah, there's been I'm in a similar boat, and a few of the other guys that are within the community are in the same boat as well. I think where we've got cards come back and we sort of look and think, 2 9s and 2 9.5s, but it just looks so clean, so immaculate. I wonder what the problem was.
Yeah, so like if you were to do a regrade, you got to pay them money just to look at it in the first place. It'd be nice to say, hey, regrade, this is where I think it's issue. If it doesn't get better, can you please at least give me a little note explaining why it didn't happen, or like, that'd be nice to get some personal touch to it, especially when you're paying $250 for to even look at your card in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, for that money, and that's probably one of the main points that I touched on earlier. It's like that customer service. I don't remember it ever being there anyway with Beckett, but especially when you're paying so much money, you would expect some kind of, I guess, customer service, but you really don't get anything, which is a shame.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have that communication aspect of it. But yeah, right now it's just a waiting game, so I'll see. I should have another big batch coming in February, and another big batch coming, I think, May. Hopefully I'll see then. But for now, it's like I think I had like 10 to 15 cards, potential regrades, but those are mostly because they're borderline upgrades,
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, these are really high-end cards. It's nice to get them bumped up to from a 9 to 9.5 or 9.5 quad potentially, stuff like that. So those are a few of my thoughts on my graded cards. So Flesh and Blood, you said you're a fan of Azalea, but in general, though, is there a favorite part of your collection of Flesh and Blood?
I went on a bit of a buying spree, and I was chasing sort of the heroes, Cold Foil heroes, as a lot of us were, and recently picked up a Dorinthia Iron Song Cold Foil, which was really awesome and in great condition from one of our local players here in Perth. So that leaves me with just a few to finish the set. I think I am still chasing a Rhinar, and I have a trade organised with a gentleman from the group for a Cold Foil Ira, and I'm sending him a BGS 9.0 Alpha Foil E-Strike.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a pretty good trade.
So at the moment, the postage is not allowing us to send the trade each other's way. Like, we're just sitting here with the boxes are packed waiting, and as soon as they allow us to post them, we'll do that. So but aside from that, definitely the Cold Foil potions as well, the promo potions that were released. I've got a set of those graded, and they're probably one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, those are really cool. Those stuff like that usually doesn't come in Gold Foil, so it's nice to get those promos that came out before. Well, those are the original promos too.
Yeah, 100%. I love the fact that, and nothing feels like overwhelming. Like they support the stores and the players with promos so well, and there's always such a great variety of promos. But if you look back into the early days, at some of those really, really early on Cold Foil potion promos, a lot of people have got opinions about the Rudy promo, but whatever they want to say about it is fine. But it's promo number one of the Flesh and Blood TCG. So there were no cards before that. Well, there were cards, but official promos there was none before that. So I mean, I just like the fact that they do those little kind of higher end sort of promos for people as well.
That's really cool. Anybody who collects cards has this issue too, but being a store more so, I would think. You tell me otherwise, but being a store, how do you decide what to keep and what to sell, whether it being ungraded or graded cards? Because you got a business to run too, but you also like to collect the cards too. So how do you determine what you want to keep and sell?
Yeah, it's probably like my biggest weakness is either not keeping stuff sealed when I should, or I guess potentially I'll often dismantle my own deck if there's cards that players need, and make sure that the sale can happen for them. Not so much for the money side of it, but more just to ensure that the players are supported. And I guess that's the direction I've taken throughout the whole journey with Flesh and Blood. Is, I mean, if you do something you enjoy, and we've obviously got the support from LSS, the rest of it falls into place if you just conduct yourself as a honest business person and support your community. The rest should just fall into place, and it sort of has done that for me. I've always got customers who are looking to buy cards. I guess certain cards I want to grade, such as like the alternate art channels, the Channel Lake fridges. They were such a beautiful card, and we did have a lot of players after those. So that was a tough decision because they were willing to sort of pay the market rate for those cards. And it's times like that where I've got to look back and say, look, no, you've got a business to run. You can't just keep 4-channel Lake Frigids in your personal collection and have them sit in the drawer for 10 months. So I guess there's not really anything that is not for sale. Everything can be negotiated and sold. But yeah, I mean, the players are always a really good indicator on what's in vogue and in demand. And I'll get random messages of people who need to come into the shop, the very next day, like it's a must, and they've got to build a deck. So that's always great to have the stock there for them. And if it's something I was going to keep, well, it's just a shame. It'll go to the customer most of the time.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing that you always have to. I mean, it's awesome that you're able to do that, but like, you're saying you had 4 to all arts. You're like, well, but they really want it, and they're my customers. So you're like, oh
exactly.
man, I can't keep all these cards. You got to let 1 or 2 go.
Yeah, the big thing is the return. You return customers, and for me, I mean, return business is always better than new business. You always want new business too, but if you've got returning customers who are always happy and happy spending money building their decks, well, I want to make sure that they're looked after. And if it means that there's something that doesn't stick around in my collection, well, so be it. I mean, I've always got other cards. I'd rather see the player base happy.
And then markets fluctuate over time, especially with the high-end cards. Back in May, the cards were super high. Now they're still very high, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely lower than they were last May of 2021. How do you determine what to hold on to for long term versus what to sell now? And do you sell in all markets, or do you wait for certain prices to sell? Because I know you have a bunch of high-end stuff as well.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. I often am happy putting like high-end cards up within the sort of private groups that I have linked to the store, and I look at it as, what does the card owe me? If a like a Storm Striders, for example, what are we looking at? Maybe 1.1 to 1.5 USD for a really good quality raw Storm Striders. Maybe even a graded one would be about that at the moment. I'm not sure, but I'd have no issue in saying, well, look, I'll put it up for 900 US on the private group, because really, does it owe me any more than that? Yeah, the market might dictate that it's meant to sell for X, but I think we often get caught up in the market says one thing, so that's what I'm going to go with. But if things need to be sold, or you're trying to make some sales, then you have to actually meet halfway with the buyers as well. When it comes to the high-end stuff like cold foil eyes and so on and so forth, that's a bit of a different story. But if I've got an Alt Art Galaxy Black that would normally go for maybe 500 USD, and I need to sell it, like I've got 2, I will drop the price down. It's not to undercut anyone else selling them, but if it's going to be a sale, then I like to make sure that it's actually going to sell. Otherwise, your time is worth, more than anything. And if you're sitting wasting time trying to sell things at top level, you're not getting anywhere, and you're also not generating any revenue. It's sort of a loss, isn't it?
Got it. So for being a store owner and, trying to get revenue in, is you're not just holding out to the highest prices whatsoever. You consider the current market prices, and you're flexible with your buyers, you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. But then if you look at the seal product, like there's a lot of stores around my local area where you can pick up nice cheap Welcome to Wrath unlimited boxes for probably 15 to 20% lower than what I've got them for in my store. But that's a bit of a different scenario for me as a store owner. I'm not actually desperate to have all my unlimited Welcome to Wrath fly out the door, and I'm prepared to actually make business work in other ways rather than lose all that stock, noting especially now that it's out of print, for nothing. So if it sits here with the 149 Australian price tag on it and it sits here for 6 months, then that's okay, because we can break it for players, we can do drafts, and there's other options there.
Yeah, you're hosting a lot of events anyways. So I mean, as I said, that's part of the package of having a store right there. When you throw events, you have people over, you're gonna break the boxes for them. So you don't always have to be the cheapest on every single thing, as long as you're providing for the community. So I think that's
exactly.
No, that's a great aspect too. I mean, that's how it comes anywhere. Like if you got a local game store, you got to support. It's not cheap having a store. You got to pay rent every month. You got to have the man hours there, maybe other employees. So sometimes it costs more to buy some boxes, but you're getting events out of it and you support a store. So I totally agree with that. So before we close out, do you have anything else that you want to say, or do you want to give a plug to yourself and your store?
Look, if there's any Western Australian listeners who haven't taken up Flesh and Blood or haven't had a shot at wanting to and are wanting to learn the game, feel free to DM Michael and myself, and we can give you the details on how to locate the store. And you're more than welcome to come in and learn. All the players that we have visit are really, really great people. We've built a really great sort of family-orientated community. And for the high-end collectors out there, if there's particular high-end cards that you are chasing, feel free to DM me as well. Like Michael and I and a few others have got most of what you would probably need. Michael and I just did a large. Did you actually get your alpha foils that I sent you? Did they arrive yet?
No, customs takes quite a while. So they just cleared customs today, actually.
Lucky it's cleared. Yeah, Michael and I did a good deal on some alpha foils that we sent his way. So I've still got plenty in stock, guys. So if you do need specific alpha foils that aren't majestic level, because they're a bit harder to find, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. And you're all over your Facebook marketplace as well, and the sealed groups too, I believe, right?
Correct. Yes.
Awesome. So you can find me there. And then I'll post your web store link in the description below. So thanks, Mac, for being here. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate chatting with you too, Michael. Thanks for having me on, and look after yourself for the rest of the holiday period and stay safe.
Yeah, same to you.